Hey, we overcoming adversity, doing it at all costs, making wins at all loss. Yeah, the world is all lost, yeah. Ain't no turning back, we headed straight for the stars, yeah. Oh yeah, we overcoming adversity, doing it at all costs, making wins at all loss. Yeah, the world is all lost, yeah. Ain't no turning back, we headed straight for the stars, yeah. Oh yeah.
Welcome to the Overcoming Adversity podcast, where it's all about transformative growth and a resilient mindset. Before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. I'm your host, Michael Allison. Today we have a guest of mine that I've been waiting to have on this show. We have today friend Mr. Bill Robertson, who is a screenwriter, a playwright, and also an author. He's been sober clean for over 26 years. He started drinking back when he was 12 years old. This guy has his own fair share of adversities, but has overcame all of the adversities that he's faced. I want to welcome to the show my good friend, Mr. Bill Robertson. Thank you, sir, for being here, sir.
Hey, Mike, it's my pleasure. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for being here with me, man. We were talking behind stage, and now we're live. It's been very impressive just to understand some of the things that you've been through in your life, and hearing that story. You know, a lot of them make it to where you're at now to even tell the story that you've been through, man. You know, it's an uphill battle for a lot of people. Some things that some people may consider addictions, or some of these things that have people either in homes or just in some messed up places. So I commend you for overcoming the things that you've been through. But if you can, man, can you tell us about your story and how you got to the level of success where you're at now today?
Sure. Thank you so much. And, you know, it's funny, the first word that popped into my head was miracle. I think, that word can be used for many of us, that the fact that we're still here. I mean, your story as well. I started drinking. I had my first drink when I was 8, and I liked the taste immediately. And then I started heavy drinking at 12. And a lot of it was about things that were happening around me. You know, my dad had a heart attack. My mom got hepatitis within like 3 or 4 months from when my dad got back, and I watched her eyes roll up in the back of her head, and she had a fever of like 105, and she stiffened up like a board and hit the ground, and we thought we had lost her. And I was 12, and then I had fallen on the ice and hit my head, and I had a really bad concussion, and I went blind. And it was 1972. The world was kind of, topsy-turvy. And the neighborhood I grew up in Attleboro, Massachusetts at the time, we all started, it seemed like everybody was dealing with a certain level of anxiety. And then one of my friend's mothers committed suicide. She was a heavy drinker. And 2 weeks after she died, the woman across the street moved in with her kids into the house with my friend and his father, because they'd been having an affair.
Wow.
So it was brutal. So my buddy started dealing drugs right away. And in one weekend, there were like 15 of us, like 8 on a Saturday and 7 on a Sunday, who all started smoking pot for the first time. I still remember it was a Panama Red and 2 Colombian Golds for $1. It was a real deal back then. But anyway, and we all started drinking at the same time. Like, we'd bring out bottles from our parents. We had a rule in the neighborhood. It was so stupid. You have to finish the bottle of whatever you bring out. You ever drink a whole bottle of Seagram 7 in one night? Not a fun experience, let me tell you.
Nah, but you Boston guys are some tough guys, man. I was in some Boston guys, man. Those boys can drink.
Yeah, I mean, well, they call us mass holes. That's for a reason, It's a lovely nickname. But no, we drank, and it's funny in Boston, and it's kind of like Los Angeles. I used to say half of us are in program and the other half should be. So it's that kind of thing. But yeah, so we drank a lot and we partied and we got in a lot of trouble. One of them is no longer actually 2 of them are no longer with us. One, and they died due to their drinking and drugging. 2 went to prison. It was rough. So when I look back at it now, I went to my first 12-step meeting when I was 17 in 1977. And then in 1987, I was at a barbecue with a bunch of friends, and this guy made chicken salad with his hands, and he had hepatitis. Once again, hepatitis. 10 of us caught hepatitis, and the doctor said to me in 87, because I continued to drink after 77, I only went to one meeting. The doctor said, if you ever drink again, you'll die. This was 1987. And I was petrified of alcohol. I smoked a shitload of pot. And then I went about a year and a half without a drink. And I was out with a friend at a club, and he said, hey, what do you want to drink? I said, I'll have a Perrier with a lime, because that's what you drank when you were sober in 1987, And he tapped me on the shoulder and handed me a Heineken. And I went out for another 10 years. And I became a crack addict. I had a big ass job in Boston. Lincoln Town Cars picking me up. I didn't get high or drunk during work. That was one thing I made sure. I had really bad hangovers at work, but I didn't drink during work or drug. And I hit the crack pipe for about 6 months at the end, and that's what dropped me. And thank God it did, because I was also a blackout drinker. You'd wake up in the morning, and the first thing is I'd look out my window to see if my car was there. And one time it wasn't. So I'd left it unlocked. And when you live in Boston, because I was living in Dorchester at the time, somebody stole the car. I got carjacked. I witnessed a murder. I saw a 16-year-old boy shot in the head and killed. I got mugged. It was just constantly bad karma. I had my apartment ransacked. I was living a double life, and the hole inside of me was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I couldn't fill it with alcohol and drugs anymore. So on April 18th, 1997, I was struck sober. And I haven't had a drink or a drug since. And it's not easy, but I was so sick and tired of being sick and tired, and really came close so many times. I mean, I'd be in a crack house talking to people, and someone would ask me for somebody. I remember this one dealer said to me, do you have any Klonopin? I did. I had Klonopin, so I traded him Klonopin for crack, and then he wrote my name and number on a crack house wall. And I was working in corporate America, right? So when I left there, I'm like, damn, my name is on a crack house wall. You're not good. They ended up condemning the building, but these stories are just so stupid when you really hear them. And I have a million of them, which will be in my second book, but it's just ridiculous at times. And things, seriously, it's just one after another. We call them jackpots. That's what they're called in Boston, that you had another jackpot. So I met this guy who was from LA, but was going to Berkeley School of Music, and he became my sponsor early on and got me into this, the 12 steps and did that. And, life continues to happen, whether you're sober or not. But now I have a tool chest with different solutions in it that help me deal with the adversity of life that happens. A lot of stuff's gone down since I got sober. I had a better understanding of why I was here, and my connection with God became much stronger. I'm not a Bible guy, but I know that there's something greater than myself, whether you call it source, spirit, energy of the universe, Mother Nature, God, whatever works for you, is how I was able to stay sober one day at a time. And the other thing I really need to, I want to impress this on anyone listening is I'm not in a results business. I'm in the business of taking action. That's all I can really rely on. I can take action. But if I get stuck in the results, what I want as a result might not be as great as what the universe wants for me. And I know that might sound crazy to some people, but I've reached certain goals, and then I'm like, now what? That was kind of a waste. Why did I want that? because my ego told me I wanted it, because I was comparing myself to someone else. I had to be a millionaire by the time I was 30. Well, that didn't happen, you know. But if I had, I'd be dead by now. Are you kidding me? I never would have gotten sober at the age of 36. I would have already thrown dirt on me. And so it's that type of thing that, getting sober, hey, some people can drink, all the power to them. And some people are not alcoholics. They're just heavy drinkers and they just need to stop. But mine also, because of the fall on the ice, and my three of my uncles died of alcoholism. My grandfather was all related to their drinking and smoking a ton of cigarettes because they were from Glasgow, Scotland. So they smoked a boatload. I ended up getting OCD, and OCD, if you talk to people that are in recovery, a lot of them deal with some type of a compulsion, because that's what alcoholism and addiction is. It's a compulsion to not want to feel anything. Didn't want to feel. And if I was having a great time, I wanted to feel more. It's kind of a paradox, you know. So that's kind of the foundation of it. And when I got sober, I was not only in corporate America, but I was also running a sketch comedy show out of New York and Boston called Heavily Medicated Fairy Tales. It was like Monty Python, right? And I couldn't focus long enough to write a script or a book. I could only write like 3 or 4 minute sketches, and then my attention would go away, So I directed and produced it. We did really well. We did a lot of colleges and corporate gigs also. We got close. ABC came to see us for a pilot in New York at the Duplex in the Village. And we didn't get it, but, we were getting people in there to see it. And the first thing I did after I got sober, I quit my job in corporate America. A friend of mine had a startup in the same industry, and I went to work for him and made nowhere near what I was making in corporate America, but it was so I could focus on my sobriety. I had saved a ton of money, and then I wrote my first script in my first year of sobriety, and it was about a drug addict, of course. And I remember writing it with my writing partner, who also had overcome a drug problem, and the two of us were just sweating profusely during one scene. It was like so intense. I've optioned that script 4 times, but I haven't made it yet. It hasn't been made yet. Maybe someday I will. It's called Nightclub. But anyway, and then at 4 years sober, I moved to Los Angeles. I had picked up a manager, and I learned how to work still in corporate America, but I've been working from home since 1997 as a corporate recruiter. And I'd get contracted out to different companies, or I worked internally for companies, and I could always write on the side. And it used to be my A job was writing, my B job was recruiting. So my B job was supporting my A job until my A job supported me.
Right.
So I had to honor both, because it's not easy. This isn't 1964 where I could live in my car and write a screenplay and be fine. So it's expensive to be a human being right now on the planet, especially in this country. So that's kind of, what led me to that. And then I ended up writing a musical comedy out here, a bluegrass musical comedy. I knew nothing about bluegrass, and my writing partner and a composer friend of his, who is a bluegrass performer straight out of Mississippi with a banjo on his back and the beer belly and the long beard. And he was like, "Hey, Bill, we're doing a remake of Hee Haw. Do you want to help me?" I'm like, "Hell no. I don't give a Hee Haw. What, are you kidding me?" And he just kept, and I was adapting a book for this other producer at the time. And he just kept haunting me with it. And I was like, "All right, send me some of the music. Let me hear what this is." It was totally different than what I thought. And the music was incredible. So I went in and helped them write the script, and it was called Paradise, a bluegrass
Mhm.
musical. And it ran in LA for quite a long time, had 2 runs in LA, and then a regional theater, the Austin Playhouse picked it up. And then over COVID, there was a producer who ran Robert Duvall's company for like 11 years, saw it, and we were already kind of, communicating about different projects. And he was like, "Bill, what about turning it into an independent film?" And this is the middle of COVID. And I'm like, "What?" So I kind of took my skill set and I raised the capital for it. And we shot it during COVID. We brought in um, a woman, Mary Sarah, who was a finalist on The Voice. And we brought in some other great people. And we shot it. The whole thing was done in, what was it, 3 weeks. We shot, we laid down the music and rehearsed for 2 weeks, and then we shot the film in 6 days on a soundstage. It's very
Oh,
different.
wow.
Yeah, and then Artist View Entertainment is our sales agent and distributor, and so hopefully in 2024, or if not sooner, it will be sold. He did take it to Cannes and just got back recently. So, who knows? Who knows? Everything's a crapshoot, and it's like the old writer William Goldman, who wrote The Sting and a bunch of other films, said, "No one in Hollywood knows anything."
I,
So
I,
if you kind of, huh?
I was gonna say, I have a lot to unpack here, man. You gave a good bit of about your background, and your story is so phenomenal, man. You share more with me than I even knew.
Yeah, I know.
So
I'm an
okay,
enigma.
so let's hop into some questions here. So, being that you're someone that's completely sober now,
Yeah.
you've been through the 12-step process, and you no longer have those urges or anything like that. What is it that you find to be beneficial or grateful for now, looking back at the person back then that been through a whole bunch of things?
Well, sure. First off, I still have the urge. I still get a craving. It has not gone away. I hear people say,
Mhm.
"Oh, I have no desire to." I'm like, "You're lying. Come on." I mean, when times get tough, the first thing I think about is I'd love to smoke a joint.
Mhm.
And I just realized I tried that. It just doesn't work for me. It'll lead me right back to the booze and then to the harder drugs. I mean, I was doing a little heroin at the end too. So,
Right.
I just can't do it. So the biggest thing from then to now, and I really truly believe this, everything that I've had to overcome, everything that I've had to face has helped me get closer to God. And I don't want to make this a pulpit type thing. And like I said, I'm not a Bible guy, I'm not a religious guy, I'm a spiritual guy. It helped me to better, I mean, I really do depend on this energy or power that I can't see.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's just my inner being, getting away from ego. Ego to me stands for ease God out. Am I making decisions out of fear or out of love? A lot of fear. Still have a lot of fear. And the thing I have to remember, and this is where I'm different than I was, because I was always carrying a bag of pot on me, no matter where I was. I always made sure I went to the liquor store and had plenty of booze in my refrigerator, even if I was going out. So I knew I had booze when I came home.
Mhm.
Um, I don't do that anymore. I'm not chasing anymore. I'm not caught in the disease of more, which is what happens with it. But the biggest lesson I've learned is when I'm dealing with fear, if I can remember, and it's a practice, if I walk through that fear, there's more self love on the other side. So it's realizing that walking through fear feeds me. So I had one friend who said, "I love having a lot of fear in my life." And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, because I know that on the other side of it, I'm going to get more power, more
Right.
empowerment as a human being, as a authentic human being.
There's so much lessons that you have to share, man. First off, man, congratulations, man. I know that it's a struggle. I mean, what you see on TV, what you see every Friday night, every Super Bowl, every NBA championship, you name it. That's what's being pumped and promoted, man. So I salute you, man, for just having that discipline in regards to like fighting that urge.
But you know what part of it is? I never forget what my last night was like. It was not
Mm,
cool. It was not good. As we call it, incomprehensible demoralization.
mm.
I'd sleep with anybody back then. It was just like it's just what it was. You wake up in the morning and it's like the first words out of my mouth would be, "You have to catch a cab." No, but it was just not good. And here's the saddest part. The last drink I had, this is so bad. I was managing a singing group at the time, believe it or not. They were three people that played guitar. They sang all originals and stuff. They were called Comfortable Shoes. I don't know what the fuck I was doing, but anyway, I hope I can swear on this. I just did. Sorry about that. Um, but anyway, it was white Zinfandel. I had 7 white Zinfandels. Was the last alcohol I had. I was a beer drinker. I was a shot drinker. For some reason, I drank white Zinfandel that night. I don't even like white Zinfandel, but I drank 7 of them with no food. So it wasn't pretty at the end.
That
But
was a sign to tell you that was it, man.
oh, so sad. I wish I could have had a Budweiser in a can, or something. But anyway, next.
So you had mentioned that in 3 concussions.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you manage deal with concussions and migraine headaches,
Ooh.
um, especially while in a intoxicated space?
No, it's really, it's funny. I haven't had to answer these questions yet. I've done a bunch of podcasts, and if I can help on this is really important because I know a lot of people deal with migraine headaches, and I have some solutions and actual cures, believe it or not. Um, the first concussion was I was chasing a friend of mine, and I played a ton of ice hockey growing up, so I'm a very good skater. But I was chasing him wearing my sneakers on a pond, and my feet, he was skating, and my feet went up in the air. My head came down and crashed, pretty much cracked open on the ice.
Wow.
And my parents were worried that it wasn't going to be good. And I finally got over that, and I was sitting in class. I was in like the 7th grade, and they thought I was having a stroke. I lost the left side of my face, my left hand, my left foot, all numb. The headache starts on the right, and after multiple MRIs and everything else, they determined that I had migraine headaches. And I had to shift diet. Like chocolate is the number one that you have to get rid of out of your life because it can trigger migraines. High sodium foods as well. I don't eat pork at all. Very high sodium and stuff in bacon. So I eat turkey bacon. The second concussion was football. The third was a car accident. And I've actually had 4. And the fourth was another car accident when I was sober. I got hit head on here in LA in 2014. And so the migraine headaches, the migraines took different forms over the years, and they would be triggered by different things. Weather can trigger them, stress, um, alcohol. So all these things. So when I moved to LA, and I would have like near the end of my time in Boston, I'd have like one a year, and it would kind of level me. I can't take meds. I'm just not a med guy anymore. That's a whole other story. But so I moved to LA, and immediately I was having cluster migraines. I had in the period of 3 months, I had like 20 migraines, and they were coming at me fast and furious. And what I discovered was the climate change, and I moved here 2 weeks before 9/11 on
Ah,
one of those flights. So I was a little stressed, to say the least. So
Absolutely.
I'll tell you though, here's the cure, and this is what helped me quit smoking cigarettes because I was smoking a pack and a half a day before I did what I'm going to mention, and it was acupuncture. In
Mm.
Boston, I went and got acupuncture to quit smoking. I tried everything. And this woman said, Bill, keep smoking. It's either going to work or it's not. And by like the sixth session, we'll know. By the third session of acupuncture, it took away the craving of wanting to have a cigarette. And it's been over 20 years since I've had one from acupuncture. So when I moved here to LA, I went to a place called Emperor's College, which is an acupuncture school.
Mhm.
And there's another one near me as well. And they said, "Oh, okay. Well, we'll help you. We can help you. They'll be less severe, and eventually you won't have them at all." And I'm like, "What? Why isn't anyone what?" And they were like, "Bill, come on. Western medicine's only been around for about 200 years. We've been doing this for 4,000 years." And I went, "Oh, okay." So we started doing that, and they put me on some herbs called Jaiwei. And if I got a migraine, I just kind of doubled the Jaiwei, no side effects from the
Mm.
herbs at all. And I could get rid of the migraine within an hour and go to the movies.
Mm.
And I lose my vision when I get a migraine. I get what are called what are they called? They're like lightning bolts and different things, and it's like a whole aura that happens. Knock on wood, I haven't had one in close to a year now, but and when I get them now, I know why. It's that I've eaten the wrong things and I'm stressed out. I haven't been meditating. So the migraine solutions for anyone who's suffering with them right now, first off, look at your diet. Get rid of high sodium foods. If you're gonna do chocolate, do real natural organic chocolate. And get rid of coffee. The heavy caffeine for a long time I couldn't do. But you have to figure out what works for you. And then think about acupuncture and herbs because they really have helped me a great deal be able to kind of keep them away.
I love acupuncture, man. I did acupuncture by a good friend of mine, Dr. Ware in Fort Lauderdale. I was dealing with some aches and some pains in my joints, and I 100% swear by it. I was scared about the needles, but
Yeah.
but after I
The,
did
the,
it,
re-
the service was phenomenal. Helped me relieve a whole bunch of pain. So I definitely concur with you, man.
you'll get a kick out of this. The woman in Boston who did it, her specialty was working on dogs. So I'd be sitting in the waiting room, like next to a collie and a Great Dane, and she'd be like, "Next," and she'd light them on fire too. The needles, she'd
Yeah,
light
yeah,
them
yeah,
on
yeah,
fire.
yeah.
Oh my god! And she had her own apothecary in the back. She was like a witch of some sort. She was back there mixing shit up, but it worked. It worked. She
Yeah,
was really
man.
cool.
So let's transition a little bit here. Introduced you. I said that you're a screenwriter and a playwright, and then
Mhm.
you jumped into some of the plays that you've done. But I want to know, how did you even get into what motivated you to start this? Was there a movie that you saw as a kid? Was there something that your family did
Ooh.
as a kid growing up? But what got you into the industry that created that love just to be in the film industry?
I wrote my first play in the third grade. Okay. I've always been wanting to do that, and when I got through high school and I performed a little, and then I got into college, and when I graduated and went into Boston, I thought, okay, what can I do to get me involved in theater? Because theater led me to film,
Mhm.
and it was I became the bartender for an outdoor theater called the Public Theater on the Charles River in Boston. And I figured if I'm their bartender, I'm going to meet everybody. And my goal is I'm going to be the assistant director next year. And I managed that to happen because the director at the time drank a lot. So I spent a lot of time with him, pouring him drinks. And then I was like, hey, you need an assistant director? that worked out. And then I hooked up with these other people, did this horrible vaudeville show. I don't even know what the hell we were thinking. And then I wrote the sketch comedy. And then I started doing short films. We wrote some really bizarre, off the wall short films. One of them was called Cakehead, about a man who was born with a head of cake. And literally, I shot a Cakehead series in Boston. I had to hire a baker who could make this huge cake for this guy's head, and it got into some film festivals because it was so absurd, you know. And then, so we did a series of these, and there was another one called Spaceless, you know, which was similar to what. Funny, we did this long before James Corden did it on his talk show, but it was people that couldn't find rehearsal space, so they would perform in like the middle of the street, you know, during stoplight Shakespeare is what we called it, and it was Ibsen Intercom and all those other things. So what happened with that is I went down that route, and then I started meeting friends of mine were doing some film work, and I've always been a film buff. My parents were huge into the entertainment industry. They weren't in it, but they loved movies and things like that. It always amazes me today when I speak to a millennial or whatever they're called now that I'll be like, "Hey, did you see that movie with Barbara Streisand?" I'm just picking a name out. They'd be like, "Who the hell is that?" And I'm like, "I'm old. Sorry. You know, you never saw Nuts, that movie? No." Or Prince of Tides. But, you know, so it was that type of thing. Um, and then when I got sober, like I said, I wanted to write a screenplay. And I just took the action. I showed up at the Boston Film Society. I ended up meeting people. I wrote a script. I mean, it really is about showing up is 90% of everything, if
Mhm,
not more. Like
mhm,
my sponsor says, you know, doing the work is 25%, 75% is God,
mm,
meaning that you have to, if you stay in the action, then you're not going to lose your mind when you don't get what you want,
mhm,
because you might get something better than what you want.
mhm,
So that first script, Nightclub, was the first one I wrote. And like I said, producer after producer have optioned it over the years. It hasn't gotten made yet, but so, I mean, I got a chance to meet people like, you know, at the Boston Film Society was just being of service, just showing up. I met like Ernest Thompson, who wrote on Golden Pond, you know,
mhm.
and he was very easy to talk to because I was at these events. And being here in LA, you know, I picked up a manager who said, "Bill, you have to be in LA." Now you don't, but back then it made sense. And I'd still say you do, or New York or Atlanta, um, because you're going to meet people. You can meet
Right.
people going to the supermarket, you know? So I wrote that script. We picked up a manager. It was actually with Ace. What the hell were they called? I think it was, um, I can't remember the name of the management, but it was owned by Mike Ovitz, who was a big mogul at the time here in Hollywood. And I learned a lot. And the other thing I did, and this is key for anyone who wants to write, I became a reader and I got paid to read scripts. And I worked for a nonprofit film company. So they only paid me like I think you know, I read like over 150 scripts, and they pay me like, you know, $40 a script. But you're doing enough of them, you know, you're making a little bit of dough.
Right.
And it really taught me what's a good script and what's a bad script.
Mhm.
And I also took a film class. If you don't know who Robert McKee is, you want to look up Robert McKee. He wrote a book called Story, and he does these seminars all over the world. I think he's still doing them. He's pretty old now, but I took a 3 day seminar at Harvard. I wasn't going to Harvard. I wasn't that smart, but I went and took the seminar, and it started at like 9 in the morning, went till 10 at night. You had 2 20-minute breaks. So it was like taking a full semester,
Mhm.
and he was brutal. He was absolutely ruthless. I have to share this one part. He would say to everybody, "Listen, this is about writing. Don't anyone ask me how to get an agent or a manager. Please don't ask me. That drives me crazy. Blah, blah, blah. Are there any questions?" First question from this guy was, "Hey, how do I get an agent?" He was furious. He lost his mind. Second person, same thing. And the rest of us were like, "Are you people deaf? What's going on?" It was so idiotic. But Robert McKee's book Story, and I'm a big Sid Field fan. I know it's an old screenwriting book, but it's called Screenplay by Sid Fields, and I still pull it out when I write a new screenplay. So that's how I kind of got into it. It just kind of progressed. I've always, it was like I always wanted to, and I didn't move to LA until I was 40. I'm 62 now, and I'm not
Wow.
making money like Spielberg. You kidding me? Now, the potential's there, but COVID changed everything for me. Now I used to recruit and write both equal. Now I just write, and I have to have faith. And I know a lot of people, and I've sold a couple things to Lifetime. They made one in 2018, 2019. Worst title ever. Horrible film. I shouldn't say horrible film. It was originally called You Can Never Go Home Again. And I'm like, oh, okay. They kept telling me A&E loves the title. I got the shooting script. It's called Stalked by My Ex. And I guess they have a stalked by series of films. So, but it's done really well. So
I've seen quite a few. I'm actually an avid Lifetime watcher and Element and Oxygen watcher, man.
so check out Stalked by My Ex. That's my film.
Okay, I will. Okay, man.
So,
So you've also now written several books, but you just recently released a book. So
yeah.
if you can tell us a little bit about your book, and let's introduce your book, man.
Sure. It's called all right. When I was growing up in my neighborhood that I already told you guys about, I would try and talk these guys out of doing things. It was like, you really don't want to mug that old lady. You really don't want to break into that guy's house. Are you kidding me? He's a cop. What are you going to break into his house for? He's got guns. Don't do that. And one guy said to me, "You're such an Uncle Bill. Shut up, Uncle Bill." So that became my nickname for a while. And then I got into college, and this woman said to me, "Hey, Uncle Bill, you want to get high?" I'm like, "Who told you? That's my corporate America." Somebody called me that. Now one of my neighbors calls me that. Now most of my friends don't, but so this friend of mine said, "Bill, you have the craziest stories about animals that you've experienced, from dogs and cats to hawks and coyotes and everything else that have come into my life." And she was like, "Why don't you write a book?" And I just thought, yeah, you know what? I'm going to write a book. So it's called Uncle Bill's Animal Tales: Life Lessons for Adults. So I took it because I really thought about how much they have impacted my life. When I've gone through hard times in my life, my dogs were always there for me. When I got clean and just before I got clean and sober, I had a cat for 20 years. And it was funny. I realized most of my friends at the time all had cats because we were all doing drugs. So you could leave them for a day or two and they'd be fine as long as they had food and water. With a dog, you can't do that. And so it was like story after story. And I wrote it because I wanted people to stop and remember that we don't own this planet. We share this planet
Mm-hmm.
with all the animals, with the trees, with the ocean. And I think if we stop and remember that maybe we'll treat it better and treat each other better. So that's really what it was about. I wanted it to look like a children's book, just for us all to kind of remember what it was like of when we first embraced the animals in our lives.
Right.
You know, I've already been getting emails from people who I don't know saying, "Bill, I just had to put my dog down. Thank you so much for writing the book. It really helped." And it's humorous and heartfelt. So the stories are funny, and some of them might make you cry, but they're all true stories, and also a lot of tips, a lot of stuff on a lot of people don't know about certain ways to make it affordable to have a dog because they can be expensive. So I added a lot of ways to be able to help with the cost of having a dog or a cat. And now it's on.
I've always
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
always been a an animal. I had a service dog too as well, and I know that a lot of people get service animals just because of some PTSD issues or some personal issues and things like that. So knowing that you're just sharing that there's many different ways of getting animals to provide a service or benefit to you aid. Can you talk a little bit more about that in regards to like how people could do that?
How people can do that?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I think I understand the question. Are you talking about the best ways to have to find service animals?
Well, just the animals that could help people that may be going through some things or dealing with some
Oh, got
issues
it.
and things
Oh,
like
okay.
that. Right.
Yeah, yeah. I think, for me, and I mean, there's some organizations out there that are doing incredible work with animals and veterans. Actually, I had a YouTube channel for a while called Spotlight the Good, and we would go around and interview people who were either working, running shelters where they were helping dogs, and there was one that was called Paws for Purple Hearts,
Mm,
and they're still
right.
running. Paws for Purple Hearts is veterans train the dogs in order to then give the dogs to another veteran. So
Okay.
it's vets helping vets. I think they're based out of Virginia, and it's
Hmm.
called Paws for Purple Hearts.
Hmm.
Um, I met the president. He came out. He was an incredible guy, and so that's one way is to find those type of organizations. And sometimes those organizations, there'll be a dog that maybe just hasn't been the best student but could be a great dog to take in. I'm real big on adopt, don't shop. Um, and I think I know with my dogs, I really do feel like they chose me. So it's if you're going to go to a shelter to adopt your dog or a foster or a um, a rescue, it's do your research more than anything because every dog has a different temperament. I've had some people I know I just want to, oh my God, I just want to put them in a shelter because they'll end up getting a dog that needs a lot of running or a dog that needs a lot. It's like even pit bulls. Pit bulls need a lot of human interaction, right? That's one thing. They're very independent, but they need a lot of interaction. So it's getting to know who they are. It's like if you're gonna pick a roommate, you want to make sure that you're gonna room with somebody who you get along with. And I kind of
Right.
feel
Right.
same way with dogs, you know. And each breed has its own temperament.
Mhm.
So, just before someone grabs a dog, and the other thing, friends of mine that do volunteer work at the shelters, they tell everybody, if you're gonna adopt this dog, you're making a 15-year commitment. Might be less, but you need to get it into your head that that's what you're going to do. My dog now is 15 and I got her as a puppy. But,
Mhm.
I wouldn't, if I had to move, I'd find a place where I can bring my dog.
Right.
Ju-
Right.
Just the way it is.
So for someone that's looking to get into the film industry, can you share what was the process like for you in regards to selling that film, selling that script to
Oh,
Lifetime, and what challenges did you face going through that process?
at the end of the day, it's an old adage and it's so true. I was praying it wasn't true. It's about who you know. It's about who you
Well,
know. It's about building relationships,
I
and you
got
can do it in a lot of different ways. Longevity is part of it. I remember Jay Leno said for comics, it takes 15 years to make it in LA. Um, it's a long haul. It doesn't happen overnight, and sometimes if it does, you might not see it again. So those are very rare. The Lifetime movie was because I knew a director. I knew this woman. I had worked with her in finance when I was in Boston. She left around the same time I did. I left to get sober, and she left to make a short film. She just decided, I'm going to do this. She hadn't graduated high school. She managed to get this huge job with one of the biggest investment firms in Boston. The lady was amazing. And I think a big part of it is you got to have some grit, and you have to be okay with rejection. And the number one thing in writing, there's no such thing as writing. There's only rewriting. So if you get that into your head that it's about rewriting, it's about taking notes. If you're going to give it out to people to read, I always give people a list of 7 questions that they can't answer yes or no to. And no matter what the feedback is, I don't fight with them. I don't say, yeah, but I meant this or that. No, just take the notes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And you just keep looking at whether or not you're hearing the same thing from a bunch of different people. Sorry, my 15-year-old dog needed to go out. So, it's that type of thing. But it is about meeting people. Volunteering is another way to do it. Like I mentioned, if you're living in a certain city and you want to get your film made, find the film society in your area. All right. Volunteer at film festivals. You could look for a reader job if you're in any of the markets like LA, New York, Atlanta, Chicago. It's reaching out. I mean, back in the day, I remember I sent a script. It's a little different now, but actually now you even have more access because you can find people anywhere. You can't be afraid to reach out. You don't want to be annoying. And, it's got to be short and sweet, and ask people for advice and for help. That's really what worked. Because when I did this Lifetime, it was my friend Monica, who was a director. I had volunteered. My writing partner and myself were script consultants on her short film. We didn't charge her a dime. So she had directed some Lifetime movies and then hooked me up with somebody. And we started talking. And let me tell you, it was such a pain in the ass. It was the formula that they use. Like you have to, like you couldn't write anyone, drinking, having a cigarette. I mean, there were no other. They just had a big list of no-nos that you had to do. It was very formulaic. It went through tons of rewrites, and it took I'm going to say 6 to 8 months just to get the script sold. It was nuts. And they would buy the idea or the pitch. And then from there, we had to do an outline. And then from there, I'm telling you guys, like this film that I just made over COVID, it shot in April of 2021. Is that right? No, or 20, what are we in now? We're in 2022, okay, is when it was shot. So it's been a year, and we got it. Maybe I'm off on the numbers, but anyway, it took about a year. This is a very short period of time. It took about a year to shoot it, edit it, and get distribution. That rarely ever happens. All right. And it hasn't aired yet. But people would say to me, like 3 months after we made it, so where can I see it? It doesn't work that way. 2 years. It can take a long time. So if you're going to get involved in this industry, there's a lot of waiting around. There's a lot of rejection, obstacles. The only way to overcome it is that it's just not giving up. And it can be a long haul. And it's almost like the old saying, don't quit before the miracle happens. Because you could quit 5 minutes before the miracle happens. And why are you doing it? Right. Are you doing it for money, for fame? I've had a lot of friends over the years, because I've been out here over 20 years, people that reached some pretty high fame who fell even harder because they weren't grounded and they were doing it for different reasons. Be of service. Be of service as much as possible. The money will come if that's what you're doing. But, I'm serious. I got story after story of people. There's some celebrities that I mean, we've read about them in the papers. And when you talk to people that know them, they were so caught up in the results and not in the action that they lost sight of everything else.
Wow.
You know?
So
I mean, it's yeah, it's
go ahead.
crazy.
Go ahead.
No, that's really it. I mean, if you're writing, it really depends on what you're writing too. I mean, if you're if you want to get into production, find a PA job, and that's really key. Or volunteer even on a film set. And you could say to people, "Listen, I just want to get in here any way I can. I'll volunteer. I'll be a volunteer as a PA on your film." You know, student films is another way if you're acting. If you're going to write, it really is connecting with as many people as possible. Maybe do a staged reading of your movie after you've already gotten notes and done many rewrites. It and then enter it in the film festivals because a lot of them now have screenwriting contests, and you can go that route. I didn't go that route. It was about people I met, like that producer was brought to me through an actor friend of mine. So it's just about, as my friend Liz said when she moved out here, Bill, just make friends. That was it. It was so simple. It was like, Bill, just make friends. If anything, if you might have a friend, and you might have a friend who has connections, but just make friends with people. And that's what works
Make
being
friends.
here in LA, I feel, through my church, my spiritual center, not my church, my spiritual center, Mark Harris, who's passed away, he produced Crash and Gods and Monsters. And I wanted to meet him, and I volunteered. And the next thing you know is I became the head of development for his film and TV company that was supporting the Agape International Spiritual Center here in LA. And we didn't get any films done. We tried to. I had to read. I probably read another 100 scripts. And Mark had produced some big films. So just the information that he gave me, the time, I got to meet people. We went out and pitched projects around LA. It was all of that. And then I got my agent that way. So it's just get involved as much as possible in the business that you want to be a part of.
How do you feel seeing your movie Paradise of Sinners and Saints in LA? How did that make you feel to see something that you created come to fruition?
Well, it's funny. I saw it. We did a screening at the Charlie Chaplin Theater, which I thought was really cool, right? Because it's where United Artists was originally, that him and Douglas Fairbanks Jr. and Mary Pickford started way back during the silent movie days. And it was on the Raleigh Studios lot that Netflix just bought. So we were one of the last films that they saw there. It's hard to see your work on the screen. It got a great response, but it's like I know a lot of actors that won't go to their screenings. They won't watch their movies because their ego, or they're feeling like, oh, I could have done this better. Like even Woody Allen said if he could, he'd go back and re-edit his first film. So I think as an artist, you have to know when to stop. And I can't control. It's very subjective. Comedy is very subjective. And this show had been up enough times where we got really great reviews. Like I'd get like 10 A+ reviews, and the 11th review would be a B-. What do you think I'd focus on? The B-. It was crazy. So seeing it on the big screen, it felt good, but like Norman Lear, they asked Norman Lear, who turned 100 and something this year, how did you handle things? And he would always say, over, next. So I kind of felt that way. It was like, all right, it's over. What's next? I mean, I hope the audiences that see it love it. I hope it gets sold to a place where everybody can see it. We had somebody there from a pretty big streaming company that was an executive who loved it. They took the artwork and the trailer to Cannes. As the producer said to me, Bill, it's now going to be a waiting game, and that's what's going to drive you nuts. And they're right, because I have to just, because it could take a long time. It could get sold right away. It's literally it's the roll of a dice, and you have to understand there's no rhyme or reason to getting it. Like, I raised a lot of capital for this. I had no experience raising capital. I took my recruiting skills and put it into that area. And I got money from people. I had no idea they were going to pay me money. I had a friend call me and say, Bill, you taking any more investors for your film? Hell yeah. And then this Hollywood company gave us some money too. And you can make things for under $1 million and make a really good product, and it's about learning. It's about being willing to have an open mind of how things work, take the action, and move on to the next thing, but seeing it was fun. And I had seen the show hundreds of times because it's based on a stage production. The biggest miracle was nobody got COVID, and we had to hire COVID compliance officers that cost us an arm and a leg. And then 2 weeks after, the guy who laid down all the music at the studio in Venice Beach, him and his family got COVID. My lead actor got COVID. 2 other people on the production crew got COVID, but nobody did during the making of it. So it's a blessing. It's totally blessed, man. It's probably gonna be R-rated, I think. 21 original songs. Funny.
Wow.
Some very, very funny songs. Yeah. And also some beautiful. And if we do get distribution, outside of the distribution that we have now, there is a song in it called Miss You that could get nominated. It's that good. And Mary Sarah sings it, and her voice is just beautiful. What an incredible artist she is. So I just got chills saying that again. So
I have a friend. When I was writing my book, I went to Austin, Texas, to learn how to write and tell your story through storytelling and writing a book. And he became my mentor. He worked on Law and Order, some Netflix shows, some movies, and things like that. And he's been telling me to like write my book, write my story, and I've been telling him that I really want to turn this book into a film. And I was asking him like, what does it you need to do in regards to like even get your book into the film industry? And he was telling me that it what he does, he's a writer, so he was telling that like it's a grind, and the stories you're telling me, it's a grind. And what you came down to telling me also like who and you have to tell the right story and get in front of the right person, but you never stop. Just keep on going, keep on going. Something you said that I've never heard anyone say before, and you said rewrite.
yes.
Can you talk a little bit about rewrite? What does that mean when
You bet.
Tell me something about that.
There's no such thing as writing. There's only rewriting. And what that means is, especially with a screenplay or a play, especially a play. Oh my God. Everybody's got a note. Everybody's got a note. And when you get dealing with a Netflix or somebody else, then you get executive notes, which is just crazy. Okay. So when this will be a good example. When this play did really well here in LA, my producers at the time got all these Broadway people involved, and they wanted to take it to New York. To open on Broadway is $5 million. I'm not going to raise $5 million anytime soon. It made no sense, whatever. So we did a 10-day workshop at the Broad Theater here in LA. Big theater, nice place. They loved the show. They saw it. They wanted to take it from this one theater and take it there. So they brought in all these Tony Award winners, and it was rewriting from day one. They were like, you got to get rid of this. You got to change it this way. And at the end, we did this big reading with, like a lot of, like Felicia Rashad's stage manager. It was a lot of people. Yeah. And a lot of Tony winners from The Lion King, you name it. And it's a bluegrass musical, right? We were not allowed to use a fiddle or a banjo. They used a piano. what the, it was like, what the hell? And this guy had gotten us to rewrite it to the point where it became a Broadway show. This was not a Broadway play.
Mhm.
So at the end, my producers, myself, and everyone else decided, no, this is not good. It didn't work. But we got 5 new songs out of it. So we took that and we ran. The rewriting process for 10 days. By the end, I never wanted to write again. I said to my writing partner, I'm done. Not going to do this anymore. And what I learned from that, and this is the funny thing, because the guy, and I'm not going to name him, but the guy who was one of the bigger Tony winners, said to my producers, "What's up with Bill and Tom?" And they were like, "What?" And they go, "They're really easy to work with." And they were like, "Because they're easy to work with. What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Writers always push back on me, always." And I kept hearing horror stories where different writers I knew, their shows didn't go up, films were canceled, other writers were brought in because the writer wasn't willing to collaborate.
Mm.
So rewriting is a big part of the process, but you have to decide, what hill are you willing to die on?
Right.
That's really what it comes down to, is like, what are you going to clamp onto? And I wish we had done that with the Broadway people. I think we did to a certain extent, but I just more and more, it's like, all right, how do I collaborate and keep the authenticity and the truth of what I want to tell? And at the same time, be able to work with these people in order to get it produced. So you have to get into the mindset of, even though you've written this draft and you've spent all your time on it, it's going to be rewritten. That film Nightclub, easily 20 rewrites, if not more than that.
Whoa.
Probably. Yeah. The film, oh God, that Lifetime film, I'm going to say 25 rewrites. Yeah. And the book, I didn't get a lot. I got some notes on it, but I myself went back through it probably 10 times. So it's because you have to allow it to breathe. You have to allow it to continue, to grow. There's no such thing as writer's block. It's a gestation period. If you just acknowledge, okay, ideas are churning up, and that's where I'm at right now. I'm going to let it come out. So if you go the Hollywood route or Broadway, get ready, because you better rewrite, or you're not going to get anything produced, because they will can you, and you have to get into that mindset. So it's like, okay, and I actually like it now. I like editing. So we'll get a script, and I mean, this Broadway thing, they were like, all right, you need to lose these 4 pages. You need to get rid of 7 pages in the second act, and you need to, what? Are you crazy? And that's what we had to do. It makes it tighter. It makes it stronger. Like, and here's the good example. The next film that we're going to make right now is called The Roses. And this director who we worked with on Paradise, his name is Justin Ward, great director. He read the script and he gave us, oh my God, the biggest email I've ever seen, asking questions about all the characters. Tomorrow, I go into a big rewrite on this, and I'm going to be changing a ton of that script, which is only going to make it better. So you have to trust who you got your notes from, and whether or not the questions that they ask you make sense. So at the end of the day, it's real simple again. Follow your gut, not your head.
So I've learned a good bit about the movie industry, a good bit of coming career, and some of the hurdles and things that you faced. Can you talk a little bit now about how do you maintain your work balance, your self-care in regards to taking care of like your mental health, your personal health, your physical health, and things like that? Someone that's in such a hectic industry as we speak now.
Well, it's not that hectic for me right now. It really isn't. I'm kind of on my own time right now. When it is hectic, first off, I need to drop like 40 pounds. So that's not, right off the bat. It comes from my sobriety. I meditate every morning.
Mm-hmm.
I pray a lot. I read books that are going to feed me in a certain way. That I think is key. Like right now, I'm reading Wayne Dyer's book on taking me through the Tao. The Tao Te Ching. Um, I'm also reading a book by a guy who was part of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous called Dr. Paul, and the book is called "You Can't Make Me Angry." What a great book! Let me tell you, that was a really good one. So it's things like that. I try to, and it's been harder lately because my dog is older and has really bad anxiety. Going for a lot of walks or runs was key for me to keep my mind going okay. I like to work. That's the other thing. I really do. I like to work. I like to create. I'm not married. I don't have any kids right now. I mean, I should say I'm not married right now. I don't have any kids. But I'm not really dating or anything right now. Well, a little bit, but it's more about I'm at that point in my life where I just want to keep creating. And I spend time with friends. I make a point of it. I try to remember um, I try to do social things 3 to 4 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
Literally put it on my calendar. Reach out to someone, "Hey, you wanna have dinner?" Or, "Let's go to the" like, last night I went to the theater. A friend of mine asked me to go and see, Transparent the musical.
Mm-hmm.
It was good just to go and it's a pain in the ass to get downtown in LA, but I did it. I had a lot of fun, met the cast, it was good. Um, it's those type of things I have to just kinda be awake. If I was drinking and drugging, it'd be easy. I'd be at a bar, or be smoking a joint sitting on the beach.
Right.
Um, it doesn't, I've already been there, done that. I don't need to do that anymore. I think if we keep evolving and understanding that we're evolving, but I do like to work. Like I'd like to be busier right now, to be honest with you. And I think that's coming because when we were doing the film, I mean, you know, I was literally the production manager as well as the writer, as well as everything else. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being busy because you know what it is when you're doing this type of work, it does become a family. It's like that's probably the main reason I like doing it all. You make a new family.
Or you spend so much time with them,
Yeah.
and you know, I was having that conversation with when I was working in corporate America. You spend more time at work than you spend with your family, man.
So you better like them. Mark
So,
Harrison said to me, I'm telling you, Mark Harris said to me, Bill, you better make sure the people that you're going to do the film with you like, because you're going to be in bed with them for about 2 to 3 years.
wow.
And Brad Wilson, who produced this film, he said to me at the end, and he's done 44 feature films, something around that. He's done a ton of them and a lot of TV programs and stuff. And he said, Bill, I got to tell you, I haven't had so much fun than working on this with you guys. He goes, normally at the end of this process, nobody's talking to each other. And we've all become friends. So I had a barbecue. Yeah, I had a barbecue over Memorial Day. 3 of my actors were here. So, you know, it's kind of funny. But it makes
That's nice.
sense because it's intense when we're shooting. We shot that film in 6 days. You wanna talk about intense. So,
How do you deal with self-doubt, fear, or failure? And what steps do you implement in your life or in your business to overcome some of these barriers?
I have a good spiritual posse. I have people in my life who I can call and say, "Hey, I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling that way." And and they will tell me, "Bill, you know that that's just not the truth. Bill, why aren't you making a gratitude list of all the things that you've been grateful for in your life right now and what you're doing? I mean, Bill, why don't you take a look at it this way?" I think having people in our lives who uplift us and don't downgrade what we're doing. If there's anyone who is negative around me, I I put up a boundary. I can still be friends. I just can't talk to them very much.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Positivity,
I,
man.
yeah, because I have some really negative friends too, and I have to just I call them on their shit all the time though. I have no problem saying that. It's like, God, you're really negative,
Mm,
and I can fall into that at times, but I catch myself. And I think regarding self-doubt, what's the point? Doesn't accomplish anything, doesn't help me move forward. Um, I'm going to address it this way. The power of thought, everything in our life starts with thought. Happiness is a choice. And I know people will be like, oh, that's such awful. No, it's so true.
it's a
It just
choice.
is. I am 110% responsible for my own happiness and my own misery. That's it. It really is that simple, I think. And I know people are like, well, it's got to be more than that. No, it's not. It's just
I agree
not.
with you.
Yeah, everything starts with thought.
I
Because
agree
think
with
about
you.
it, that's one thing running through our head all whole time. So the key is what do we what thoughts do we attach to? Because thoughts are going to keep coming. We just got to
Right.
let them go through and realize, wait a minute, no, if it's not talking about self-love and it's not about the betterment of me, then I'm just going to let the thought go through. Just let it go through. I don't have to put anything to it. And it's a practice.
So I got a couple more questions before we're out of here, Bill.
Okay.
I have this question here. So for someone that's looking to get into the film industry, talk to them about what is your approach, your creative process when it comes to writing a script or stage show or something like that. What does it look like for you when you're getting ready to come up with your genius to put something on paper that you want to see on stage or on film?
I do a couple things. Like I said, I'm old school, so I read Sid Field's screenplay. Doesn't always apply to when I'm writing a play. Um, First off, I recommend getting Final Draft. You got to have Final Draft. It's the best software, I think. For there are others, but that one I find it very user friendly. And I've written plays and screenplays and for television on that. I used to write for a kids show on PBS years ago. I wrote for a Talking Crayon. So bizarre. But then what I do is I tend to write it as a short story. I start by writing out a short story. And then what I'll do is I'll write bios on all the characters. You know, who are they? What do they really want? What are their pet peeves? Um, who else in the story do they like? And who do they dislike? And why? So it's really is asking key questions. And then you start kind of getting a better feel for the characters and the storyline. I do try to look at a beginning, a middle, and an end. Like what's going to be the wrap up on this? Like where does this go? What am I trying to say? Is it just a slice of life? It could be. Like there was a movie Harry and Tonto with Art Carney from years ago. It's a slice of life. It's him and his cat traveling to his daughters. It's just certain things that happen. If you're writing, when you're writing a play, it's more dialogue driven than a film. So with a film, you want to make sure that you're showing, not telling. And with a
Mhm.
play, you're telling and showing.
Mm.
So there is a difference in it. Television's a whole other angle, but it's understanding the craft. That's key. So read, pick up some books, take some classes, go online. There's so many ways to do it. Read screenplays, read plays as much as possible. Absorb, absorb. Um, so that's what I kind of do. I start with a short story, and then if it's a screenplay, I'll do an outline, and then I do what's called a beat sheet. And the beat sheet is this happens, then this happens, then this happens, then this happens. And you just keep going down. You can number them if you want, you don't have to, but you're mapping out the action of what happens. And that's called the beat sheet. So then when I sit down to write the screenplay, I use the beat sheet as the model. And what I do sometimes, and I like doing this, I'll write the entire screenplay with no dialogue. just action scenes, the whole thing. And then I'll go back and write the dialogue with the characters. So
Mhm.
then that way I have the whole thing mapped out. I can move scenes around. You know, what is, does this scene drive the story? It doesn't drive the story, get rid of it. Like I went to this musical last night, and it's an important musical because it's about the trans community and they're getting abused all over the place. I mean, you're in Florida, you know, that's a horrible place for people that are LGBTQ. Um, and it was, you know, the music was fun. Some of the, I thought the characters were good. There were some Broadway performers, very good. It was 3 hours long. I would cut at least 30 minutes off this play, off this
Mm.
musical. It just, I mean, I yawned big time, and I felt like it was redundant. It was the same thing, but it opened in LA, and this is what plays will do. They'll open outside of Broadway, and then they'll rewrite. Boston used to be the home for a lot of plays before they went to New York, and they would go in there and try them out, and then they would cut the hell out of them, and then create something better for New York because New York critics would kill it. You know, the LA Times ripped this musical apart, and it's sad. I met a lot of the cast. They were really, it was a tough performance. I mean, they were really good. They were really
Mhm.
good. It was just too long. And think about our readers and our viewers and our listeners, their attention span's a little different today than it used to be. So, you know, I mean, I'm even going too long, but anyway,
So
hope that helps.
no, that was perfect. Thank you, man. So this has been a great interview for me because I'm a big movie person. So when I came here to America, I got hooked on Michael Dudikoff from American Ninja, Rambo, some John Claude Van Damme, some Rocky, um, the um, the robot that was talking to himself, the A Team, MacGyver. So I grew up watching all of the TV shows, and now new school stuff. I'm a big Jason Statham, all of his movies, and Neil Nielsen, the guy that does all of the family
Liam
business.
Nielsen,
Liam Nielsen's, yeah, I like a
Taken.
good bit of his movie. Yes. So what I wanted to talk to you about, I'm saying that as I've seen a lot of things transition. So COVID did a lot of things to the movie theaters. So can you talk about where do you see the future of like movies and screens going in
Oh boy.
regards to like from the movie theaters to Netflix to now YouTube? You have Amazon. We have all of these different outlets where it's now competing with cable. So where do you see screenplays, movies is going towards in the future?
Well, and of course, this is just my opinion. I'm no expert on what's going to happen next.
Mhm.
I can tell you there's a lot of strikes going on right now. You know, the Writers Guild is on strike, and it's probably going to be on strike for a while. AI is becoming a real problem for writers, especially.
Wow.
So the Writers Guild is holding out for certain AI regulations to happen. Even Bill Gates and Elon Musk, who are creating AI, believe that there needs to be more regulations. People are scared of it, um, as far as the industry goes, and I know SAG is worried about it as well. So that's going to be one obstacle to overcome. I've been hearing a lot of interviews on this. I listened to a lot of NPR and a lot of, and they always have people in the film industry on it, and they were talking about it. The theaters need to offer more things to get people in the door, and I think they're getting better at it now since COVID. I have been to a movie theater only a couple times, but my preference, because it drives me nuts if people are on their cell phones at the theater. I can't handle it anymore. I'm too old.
Mhm.
I'm literally here in LA. I've seen people get on full phone calls, and I turned around to say something, and I was not going to intimidate this gentleman and his posse. So would have ended very badly. And then I saw a bunch of people go after a woman who answered her phone. She was like, "Oh, hello." And the whole theater booed her. And she immediately got off the phone. I think that has to be one thing, is that the theaters need to be a good place to go, that you know that you can go there and enjoy the film and not have people drunk or on their cell phones. I mean, seriously, I've experienced people drunk at the movies yelling, dropping, the F-bomb left and right when this kid's in the theater. Not appropriate.
Right.
So I think that's going to be part of it. I really do. And then the streaming services, and this is what a lot of the Writers Guild is. They want to see more residuals from it. I think everyone's still trying to figure it out. But if you've noticed the films lately, it says exclusively at theaters. And that will be so you have the big screen experience. And then from there, then they sell to the others. I don't think anybody knows, to be honest with you, what's going to happen. COVID did change everything. It changed people's mentality around things.
Right.
I mean, there were people wearing masks at the theater last night, and then I have one of my best friends lives in Fort Lauderdale. And he's like, "Bill, nobody wears a mask here. No one's worn a mask here in a couple of years, And I'm like, okay, whatever. But and what bothers me, I mean, here's what I hope happens. I hope that there's a little bit for everybody. The baby boomers, which I'm not quite there. I'm on the cusp of being a baby boomer. We're used to seeing things on television, and we want to see it in the comfort of our home. And then young people want to go and experience the big screen as well as us. And then there's other people just watching things on their phone. I don't think that took off as much, but I mean, I'll talk to some young people, like I mentioned earlier, that they just watch like YouTube videos and other videos and things and short stories and things that are, and does that tell us that one's attention span is shot?
Mhm.
I've got a friend who's not going to read my book because it's not on audiobook yet. I'm like, okay, what? Can't you sit down and read a book? What that's going on? And I know he can read, so that's the other issue. But I think you're going to find that there's going to be something for everybody. The big question is going to be, what are the revenue streams? It all comes down to the almighty buck. If they're not making money off the phone, that's going to go away.
Right.
TikTok's going to go away pretty soon. TikTok's going to go away. It really is. It's the old saying, follow the money and you'll know what's going to happen.
Right. So you mentioned this, and I've seen someone use artificial intelligence to make a song to sound like a person, and the AI created a song, and it sounded like that person that was singing that song. And then I seen someone else take artificial intelligence to write a book. I seen someone take artificial intelligence to write a movie. So I don't know when they created it. Did they know the monster that they were creating? So in your industry and in your space, knowing that this is a craft that you've been busting your butt doing for years, and all of a sudden this technology is here and it could reproduce, rewrite something that you spend weeks, days, months, and does it in seconds. What is the industry? What are your thoughts in regards to the space? And then what are some things that you think should be done in regards to protect what you guys are doing?
Well, it's like I mentioned, the Writers Guild is going to hold strong on this, and I think the DGA just did, the Directors Guild, and I know the Producers Guild did, and I think SAG is now dealing with it because they're worried about actors being replaced. I think it's going to backfire on them. I really do. I just read an article. I mean, there's been AI giving out medical information to cancer patients that was incorrect. That's not good. So what they're claiming with the writing is they think that it will help in regards to getting it out there, but that the writer will maintain, how it's formula. I mean, like the actual storyline and everything else. I think you're going to find people, just like they say exclusively at the theater,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to say not done through AI.
Mm.
Because think about it, as human beings, I don't want to see anything made by AI. I could care less. I want to see what that human being had to say. So I know everyone's worried about technology, and I am too to a certain extent, but I also think at the end of the day, I mean, I grew up through, not grew up, but I mean, I was around during the Y2K thing. Remember, everyone's like, "Oh, come 2000, everyone's phones aren't going to work, and they're going to set off, nuclear warheads." I just think human beings are nuts.
Right.
So I think with AI, I mean, look at crypto. Crypto. They all went bankrupt. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I have no desire. I had a friend of mine in the industry was like, Bill, you should be reaching out to crypto people and this, which I did because they have money. And I was trying to raise capital for the film. But he was trying to get me to buy into it. I'm like, no, thanks. And he lost his shirt, you know? So I think with AI, I'm praying that it's being used in the proper way. But I'm noticing even on answering services through like, different banks or whoever I'm calling, it will drive me away from that company. I'm going to take my money out of certain banks because I can't get through to a human being.
Right.
And I just don't think it's going to. I think the problem is the people that are doing this are not thinking about the biggest voting block out there, which are baby boomers.
Right.
And I'm on the cusp, like I said, we're not tech people. You got to make it so it makes our life easier, not harder.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think is going to be a backlash on them. I'm hoping it is, to be honest with you. I really am. I'm not a fan of AI. I know that there's certain things it's probably good for, and I probably need to learn more about that. But when I hear Elon Musk and Bill Gates talk to the Senate about we need regulations on something that we're creating because we're worried we're going to be creating a Frankenstein. So I think I don't know. I we'll see how it all plays out, but I'm near the end of my life, not near the beginning. So whatever.
So, as we get ready to wrap up and get out of here, man, I'd say thank you for sharing your insights and some of the things that you've been through. I just feel like a rewarding road now, man. Just seeing the fruits of your labor. Can you share with our audiences some key life lessons, some advice from all of the adversities that you've faced, all of the things that you've learned throughout your journey, man? You've accomplished so much. You've done so much. You got so many stories, man. What are some advice and some lessons you can share with our audience?
Don't take yourself so seriously. That's number one. Don't take yourself so seriously. Try not to take things personally, because usually if there's a jibe or something coming at you, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with them. Trust in the process. Trust in the path that you're on. If you followed your gut, you got to trust. You really do. If you can't, the worst is when people don't even make an attempt because they're so afraid of failing. Failing is all part of it. You got to embrace the failure. I'm
Mm-hmm.
serious. It's I started as a headhunter in sales, and I'd make 50 to 100 calls a day, and nothing happened. But because I put that energy into it, somebody would call me from out of left field and give me a job opening, or the perfect candidate came because I took the action. So as I've mentioned throughout this whole call, live in the action, not in the results. Just keep showing up. It's all an adventure. And I will end on this of if you look at life like, what's my purpose? What's the meaning? You're going to drive yourself mad. if you look at it that life is an adventure, and I'm going to use the word practice because I can forget, but when I can be in that space of it's an adventure and everything's unfolding for the greater good, even though you might not see it, you might not feel it, you might feel like it's never going to happen. I do believe that something that feels good comes out of everything that feels bad. That there's, which at the end of the day is the old saying, love is everything. And I really believe that it is. It's just that we got to get there. It's like the analogy I love is, and I added one piece to it. When one door closes, another door opens, but sometimes it's hell in the hallway, you know, and that's really what it comes down to. It's just realize that you might be in the hallway for a little while and then let that other door open. And I need to say this so I remember it. I mean, I'm waiting for my film to sell, the book I wanted to sell more. I'm writing my next book, but I have to stay in Monday. Just live Monday. I could walk out and get hit by a bus tomorrow.
Right.
So if I'm living in Wednesday and I get killed on Tuesday, Monday was a complete waste of time.
I think Hell in the Hallway should be your next book or next movie too.
Yeah. I'm gonna write that down. Hell in the Hallway. That's a good one.
So, Bill, if anybody wanted to book you on a podcast, wanted to work with you, wanted to purchase your book or do any other business with you, man, how can people get in contact with you, get a hold of you?
Sure. And the book is easy. Just go to Amazon. I'm keeping it easy right now. So it's on Amazon. In regards to getting a hold of me, I have no problem giving out my email address. Because I can always block somebody if I don't like what they send. So it's billrob97@yahoo.com. BILLROB97@yahoo.com. And if you need advice on something, I can always give you a quick email. I'm not going to rewrite your script unless, but yeah, no, it's fine if people want to reach out. I mean, like I've said before, we're all in this thing together, and let's just be kind to each other and respect each other, and let's make this our experience on the planet. Should be filled with more joy and happiness. And that's really all it comes down to, I think, and health.
Absolutely, 100% agree. Well, Bill, man, it's been an absolute pleasure to have this interview with you, man. I've learned so much about you. I've had a great time. I've laughed a good bit. So I just want to tell you, man, thank you for coming on here, sharing your story, being transparent, being vulnerable. You're doing something that a lot of men probably would not even do or talk about. And most people wouldn't even talk about. And like I said, man, congratulations on your sobriety, man. I know it's a struggle every single day.
Yeah.
So, your strength, your resilience, and your grit overcome adversity. So thank you so much for being on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Well, guys, until next time, we'll drop episodes weekly. We love you. Peace.
Can't complain at all. Couple dollars in my pocket, no income and go. Been working on my body, getting healthier. Thank God for clarity.